The stage curtain opens, revealing Basio Inlet on Tarawa. You can call it Tarawa or Tarawa, whatever you want to do. November 20th, 1943. Disaster looms. Tide too low, naval gunfire inadequate, communications disrupted, a nightmare. The Corps' worst challenge in history. And grabs. We're approaching Green Beach here. It's on the western end of the island. 6 Marines came here on the afternoon of the second day. Didn't have too much resistance. Right over here, right by those guns, is apparently where they found some of the remains. They probably were part of the 6th Regiment. They're probably on there, as they're moving in, they're probably on their right flank, where they're casualties.
Marines from U.S. Marine Corps Forces Pacific traveled to the Tarawa Atoll in the Republic of Kiribati, the site of a bloody battle that took place in 1943 between U.S. and Japanese forces. The purpose of the trip is to honor the remains of what are believed to be 2 U.S. Marines who died in the amphibious assault of the atoll. The Honor Guard is afforded the rare opportunity to meet a former Marine who took part in the battle. Lieutenant Colonel Dean Ladd recounts his experience as he traverses the atoll's beach.
Is where Mike Ryan had gathered a bunch of, Major Mike Ryan gathered a bunch of survivors, and they took that point. At that point on, they pretty much outflanked the enemy. Looking right down the flank from there, and also likewise moving toward the cove, which was red 1. Wow, that's hot, isn't it?
When I was coming up as a junior Marine, I never thought I would be in Tarawa after World War II. It's a great privilege for myself, being kind of one of the older Marines, as well as the younger Marines, bringing them out here and being a part of and seeing how they react to it and how it reflects on them. So it's a great mix of, we have an actual veteran of Tarawa here with us, so we have these generation mixes that we have together, and it's a great thing to see a part of the old Marine Corps with the present as well as the future.
I glanced at my men. They stared back, expected to land on the left flank. Waiting for bugles to sound charge, coxswains nervously rev engines in neutral, boats champing at the bit. Engines blasting, hearing muffled. Adrenaline surges as we clutch our weapons. Look at the island, focus on the task ahead, getting ready. Ready. Men look grim, resigned to their fate. No stopping now, keep fear under control. Do your duty, don't let buddies down, remember that, you know? I gasp, we made it. He murmurs, you're going to make it now. Those are the only spoken words. I made it, he didn't. Before sundown, buried at sea, all of vision met. I want to leave one main thought with you, Marines, that it's important that you be prepared to take leadership. You could be taking leadership. It doesn't make whether you're a buck private. You know, you may end up you and a couple other guys that's it. There's no other leadership around. You're going to take over. And what happened to Tarawa, that hadn't happened if the guys hadn't taken over at wherever it was and did the job without being told, we would have been defeated. And the other thing was that if the Japanese, if they don't get their act together, they lost their directions from when their admiral was killed. So they didn't get directions to do a counterattack. If they'd done a counterattack, we wouldn't have made it. Okay, the other thing, I was just thinking as I was coming over and telling the colonel, when I was going to grade school, we had Civil War vets there, and they were about my age, upper 80s, and they just sat around, there were their canes, and they didn't get up and talk like I'm doing. So anyway, here I'm meeting people that are 3 generations older than me back. Now I'm talking to you 2 generations forward. There's a gap. There's a range of 5 generations. It's kind of interesting, huh? Okay. All right. When I joined the Marine Corps, it was joined the Organized Reserve in Spokane. It was a battalion level infantry. In April 1939. How many Marines do you think there were in 1939? Anybody make a guess?
A few thousand.
There are 20,000. 20,000 Marines. And before the war's over, we were well over 500,000. So just look what had to happen. Our industrial might, as well as, but the Marines, just think of the Marines. Throughout our country, they had to expand like that too, but the Marines had to expand so doggone fast and make use of the leadership they had as cadre. And so what happened, as soon as Pearl Harbor, shortly after, they went through the NCO ranks, and like in my case, I was the corporal's squad leader of a machine gun squad. And I'd had 1 year of ROTC in college, and a couple of things going for me like that. And so went through just a brief, about a month long. Primarily, this is on down in Samoa. We were after the Pearl Harbor. We were immediately, the 8th Marines, the 8th Regiment was sent. Well, made it was a brigade at that time. We were sent down to American Samoa to prevent the Japanese from cutting our supply line from the United States down to New Zealand and Australia. And we were just a tripwire. They could have taken it very easily. So we were just sent down there to hold on just as best we could. And so there's where, and as well as there, all over the Marine Corps, they started making temporary officers out of the NCOs, right down to the corporal level. That's what happened. So I got a field commission, and then within a few months, I found myself on Guadalcanal in the same company that I had been as enlisted. Now that is a pretty testy situation, isn't it? Pretty testy. Here you got your buddies, and now all of a sudden, now you got a different relationship. And now that you're in combat, and you got responsibility. So I'm just saying that you can, the Marine Corps or any service, especially the Marine Corps, I would say, you're going to get thrown into this terrific responsibility at a very young age. I was immediately thrown into terrific responsibility. At 22 years old, and here you're responsible for the lives of 30-some-odd men. So, and then you might say, well, I don't know how to do this. Well, you don't say that. You just go ahead and do it. The best you know. You figure it out and do it. Don't wait for anybody to, you're not going to look at it. You probably can't go anywhere else to get the information. You just do it. Of course, automatically you've been trained to do these things. Okay, now I'm going to tell you a little bit about specifically. Well, no, I'm going to give you a little bit of my bio just beyond that. All right. So the Marine Corps grew up during that period of time, and I grew up in the Marine Corps, you might say. And then after I came back to the States, after 34 months out there, combat, and I was Quantico, and I went through what would be OCS, they had different names for it, as a captain. And then I became a company commander of a company of officer candidates. And then for another group of officer candidates, a couple hundred in each group. And then I became a company commander of a company at the basic school. And I had 1 platoon of Naval Academy graduates, second lieutenants, and 1 platoon of senior NCOs. When the atomic bomb dropped, not a single one of the senior NCOs wanted to continue. They wouldn't just stay in their current rank. So they were mostly first sergeant, sergeant major, and so on. I'm going to read you a little bit here about specifics on Tarawa. Now, have you been taken around this island much? Yes. Y'all? Well, it's pretty hard to visualize, isn't it, really, what happened, because you don't see the remains of the battle like you'll see in Tarawa. You're going to see so much. You see blockhouses all over. You'll probably see debris still out there, lying out there. They leave it out there. They consider it a national treasure, and the little kids don't touch it. I don't know whether that's that same way now, but But when I was there in 85, oh no, in 83, for instance, there would be a Japanese tank. Bogey wheels would be off separate, and they were still there. Nobody touched them. It's just incredible. Okay, I'm going to read a little bit called Tarawa Turning Points. And a lot of this is from information that Colonel Joseph Alexander, who was quite a historian, wrote in an article quite a number of years ago. And part of it is what some of my insight. And then I'm going to read a poem that what happened to me. A poem is the most efficient way, I think, of describing something. Okay, the Marine Corps have been developing amphibious assault from the sea since the early 1930s, as you probably know. And but Tarawa was the first opportunity that to apply this technique. We had so many different areas of unknowns that it's going to be the first time to see how it worked. Like some of these were, and if anything go wrong, it turned out it went wrong. Murphy's Law. If anything go wrong, it will. That's what happened. So, here are our problems. Getting over a barrier reef with a limited supply of unproven amphibian tracked vehicles. Up until that time, they'd been used only for logistical purposes, not for an assault. They were not heavily armored. We did put some armor on, but bullets went through. We had uncertain water depths. There was a lot of argument how deep that water was going to be. The problem was we were at a point of time, in relation to the moon and so on, that made this an extremely low tide. And just enough lower so that we hung up and we could not clear our floating type of craft. Couldn't get over the reef. So here we are stranded out there, have to get off and wade maybe 600 yards, 6 football field lengths, into massive machine gun fire. Probably half a dozen machine guns or more shooting at us all the time, just back and forth, just murderous. The other thing was, we didn't know how effective naval gunfire would be. You could just plaster the heck out of a little island, you think there wouldn't be anything left. But the thing is that they made these blockhouses, just very thick walls, 5 feet or so thick. Then they piled coconut logs up on that, and then they sand on top of that. And it pretty well held up against the biggest shells. But the other thing was that our naval gunfire, just like here, the height of the island is only about 6 feet, 8 feet above sea level. And you'll be glancing in the water or you're going over. So you've got a pretty narrow little target to shoot at. So you have that. The one that was most effective were the destroyers. A couple of destroyers got into the lagoon with their 5-inch, and they had specific targets they could shoot at. And I'll tell you more what one of those guys did. So the other thing was, we had all kinds of new communication equipment. The handheld radio and all that stuff, and none of it worked with it. Darn. Not only that, even the communication from the command ship out there, they had no communication, turned out, to what was happening in the landing itself. It was just, they were in the dark. It was really a really bad situation. So all of these lessons we learned were applied to the next operation here, 2.5 months later, landing here on Kwajalein and Roy Namur. The Marines landed at Roy Namur, which is the northern end of this atoll, about 50 miles up. Do you know where they landed here? You know where the Army landed here at Kwajalein. You know where they came in. They came in from the southwest. They came from the lagoon side, just like we did on Tarawa. The Japanese thought we would come in. Well, Tarawa, they thought we'd come in on the ocean side, and that's where most of the defenses were, the main defenses, the big stuff. They had 8-inch naval guns, all facing that way. So, okay, and then before the battle, both the Marine Corps and the Japanese were very confident of the outcome. The Japanese thought it'd take millionaires to take that place, and we thought, boy, our naval gunfire is going to pulverize, there won't be anything left. Well, it didn't turn out that way. All right, so now there are 4 turning points. The first one is the Japanese were surprised that we came in on the lagoon side, and with that heavy naval gunfire, it just fouled up their communications. We probably killed about half of their roughly 5,000 that were there. Of that 5,000, there were a few hundred laborers, Korean laborers, maybe a few natives that they had working with them, not paying them, I don't think. So anyway, they expected us to come, as I say, on the ocean side, on the southern side, on the ocean side. All right. But then, the second turning point, the issue remained in doubt. That first day, and Colonel Shoup was at a command post, and he was in charge, right there on the beach, and he radioed back, you know, how we're doing, but the issue was in doubt. And boy, it was in doubt, because if they could have counterattacked that at night, and usually they'd counterattack at night, you know, but they didn't, thank goodness. And the reason they didn't, we didn't know this really until years later, that the admiral was killed that first day. We thought he was killed later than that. By one of these destroyers, the Ringgold, firing the 5-inch at his command bunker. And what had happened was Admiral Shibasaki decided to vacate his command bunker so that it'd make room to bring his own wounded in there. And then he headed over to the south side of the island. As he was doing, he got killed by shrapnel. And it turns out that he died right